Hello again, my friends. Cheers to you. Interesting days that we're in, changing patterns and so on. And the following topic is something that I've been drawn to share for some time now. And I've was trying to put it in a way that would be best sort of described. So as I'm going on about further into this video, it's going to lead right into a meditation. So if you would like to get seated, lay down, however you wish to listen to this video, and take some deep breaths while I'm talking. Therefore, you're able to start tuning in to the meditation. So this is the interesting part of our lives is going through the process of living and learning, and also is also remembering who we naturally are, our natural state of essence, or our natural, being as in our natural state. A lot of, the illusion is the actual reflections and the of what we think is real, but it's really not. And so the process of remembering, it can be challenging, and also confusing at different times. But the real parts of when we start remembering different parts of our multidimensional self and so on, it's incredibly, those parts are very natural to us. They feel very organic within the levels of our awareness. And when we have different parts of remembrance coming back to us, it's like very much just like any type of real experience that we might have, or what we think is real, in the physical. And so, I personally have not had complete, you could say, 100% recall of my multidimensional existence. But there are certain parts that have come back to me that are very clear. And as what I'm picking up on and learning is that when we integrate different parts of our remembrance, it's not necessarily about identity. It's really going past the identity. When somebody says remembrance, the first thing that might come to somebody's mind is, another identity of who I was or who I am in another level. But in a way, what we're doing is, when we're really talking about remembrance, is we're talking back beyond the identity, who we really are, even beyond all of our other levels of experience in other forms. So, it's for me, the following is something that's very clear, and also is something that I'm working through also, is that, and I think that's the best way for sort of me trying to describe this, is just, let's go straight into it. So I found this part is where I found myself looking at a grid. I was separate from it, while at the same time within it, which is not necessarily the easiest thing to describe. I was able to see the grid, you could say, in a way, interdimensionally, and therefore I was looking at it, but I was still within it. It's quite interesting. And so the lines of the grid ran vertically and also horizontally. And they were blocked off in sections, sort of like cubes or, and so on. It's almost like a checkerboard grid. So the grid, as I mentioned, went vertically and horizontally off into all directions. And when I was, you could say, hovering in this space, I was looking at each level of the horizontal grids were levels of existence. And I had experienced several of these levels because I was very aware of them and the different aspects of these levels. And as these levels go out in each horizontal direction, basically it was just portions of those levels of existence. And I had spent a lot of time within these levels. There was 3 or 4 that were very prominent from my view. And there was part of me that was sort of like wondering what else there was. And in this form that I was in at this time was essentially almost formless. It just geometry and light body basically is what I was in this space. And so I really felt the urge to experience what else is there. I've experienced all these levels. What else is there? So let me, go find out, what else there is within this grid. And so I set course going vertically. And it's the vertical for which I'm describing is different from what we know in physical as vertical, and it's not easily described, but from the perceptual view and describing it this way, we'll describe it as just up or vertical. So I blasted into the vertical line, going through the grid and accelerated, beyond the speed of light, and went on for some time, which was, I felt like a long time even going at that speed or in that way. And I finally, after some time, which would have been a long time in Earth years, I came to a point where I was like, this grid doesn't end. It just goes on and on and on. There's no end to it. And that's when I basically stopped. And when I stopped, I looked off into, again, the horizontal directions. And it was just other levels of existence that I, of course, have not experienced. And so I was just like, well, this just keeps on going. It doesn't end. And that's why I call it the infinity grid. It's basically infinite. It just goes on and on. There's no end. So at that point, I was like, well, if this thing just goes on forever, there's no end to it. I might as well work my way back to the levels for which I have already known, I have already experienced, and sort of just work back in that direction. And that's what I basically started doing from that on. And, it also was a point of realization for me to realize that in order to basically, to move on beyond that level of existence, which I am fairly clear is a 6-dimensional level, to move into another level, which would be the 7th cosmic it is to merge with the grid. And so you say, well, how in the world do you merge with the grid? And so the thing that is very clear to me is it's just like all the other levels, is that we release the separation from it. We learn more about it. We release the separation and release the separation just like all the other levels of our consciousness and so on. So and that's what I've been doing. And that's what I've worked in and continue to do. And that's, me here with you right now is basically learning more about myself as the complete infinity grid, going through and learning about the different levels of existence, experiencing them throughout time or beyond time, but just experiencing them. And as learning more about who I am, in a way, I am at the same time releasing separation from the infinity grid. And that is basically what I am here with you at this point, is learning more about myself. So, and which is a part of you. You are a part of me. I am a part of you. We're all combined in this infinity grid. And it's a matter of, for me to share this information and to share this experience with you is not for you to believe what I am saying. The reason for me sharing this is to assist, and maybe that this information assists you in remembering, your own essence that is basically a part of the infinity grid. And, we're moving in the direction of releasing the separation of the levels of duality. And as we do that, we're moving through into other levels of, say, our awareness of our collective self, or, universal self, and so on. So, talking about the infinity grid, in some ways, it is here now. It's basically, it's within everything. So, with our awareness and the different levels of our awareness, we might be thinking that we have to go somewhere to connect to something, or go somewhere in another level. We have friends in other forms and other beings, star brothers and sisters and everything else in other levels of existence. We might think that we have to evolve and or ascend to a certain level and or into another form, and that is what ascension is. But really, that's just a part of it. It's not really the end, or say it just goes on and on. Really, the infinity grid goes through all those levels of existence. All, even in different forms of existence, other worlds, other beings, and so on, they're all going through the same level of remembrance. Just, if they're in a physical form, they're basically, have spawned out of the same infinity grid as you and I have. So it doesn't really matter, about beings in other forms as being evolved. We are all basically evolved beings. It's just a matter of us remembering that we are a formless, infinite, evolved being. So, in some ways, let's relate to, what we're talking about is, say, in this level of existence, and the levels of duality. The levels of duality on the infinity grid could be viewed as like oil is, when it sits on top of water, the oil just sits on top. It doesn't necessarily really mix with the water fully. It sort of suspends itself separate from it. And in the same way, that's the same way with the levels of duality. It's still liquid, but it is a different consistency. It's a different, these levels of duality are sitting on the infinity grid. They are suspended on it. And so in order to release, say, these levels of duality, of course, you have to be, saturate yourself, and or say release the separation from, coming from a level of more dense, say, energy like oil would be to water, is to essentially release the identity of yourself, seeing yourself as the oil in a way. And another example and viewpoint that I want to share regarding this is that, we have the perception that we are a physical form and we must go somewhere, or we must release, to go somewhere. But in the same way, another perception would be that we are this formless, infinite being already, who has chosen to sort of inject ourselves into a more dense level, or say a more dualistic or dense level of existence. It's sort of, you could say, restricted with levels of restricted energy. We've chosen to inject ourselves into levels of restricted energy. So the levels of restricted energy would be the levels of duality, as that's described. So in a way, in order for us to truly merge back into our natural state of being, is to ground the levels of our multidimensional self in through the physical form. And that's, as we go through the levels of remembrance, we are grounding more of our multidimensional self through the physical body, and therefore it changes the energetics of the physical body, and so changes the geometries and so on. And that's very much the same work that we do in the New Paradigm workshops, is going through the process of clearing and also activating the levels of our multidimensional self, which allows the levels of remembrance to flow. And so, it's a process. It goes on and on. But in the same way, by grounding the levels of multidimensional self, not only changes the energetics of the physical body, it also affects the energetics for which we are located and or exist. So in the same way as the oil and water, a very crystalline essence of the water can inject itself into the oil, and it creates more, it dilutes the oil in the way, it dilutes it. And, it begins to mix and so on. And that's basically what we are going through right now on Earth, is the mixing of the other levels. We're releasing density, releasing the separation, and so on. So, as a visual, you could say a meditation part of this, those of you that have been focusing, if you can imagine yourself wherever you are and see yourself as a grid. For this exercise, or for this example, just imagine a cross section like a checkerboard grid. It doesn't matter what size it is, just see that it's basically spanned in all parts of your physical body: your hands, your arms, your midsection, your back, your legs, your feet, your head. This grid is basically your physical body. Now, this grid is multidimensional. So you can see that it has different layers. Like one part of the grid might be bigger, but if you look a little bit closer between the blocks, you'll see other levels of the grid expanding out in all directions. So as the grid, you're looking at this grid in your physical body, and you are this grid. Now look beyond the physical body and see the infinite grid that goes out into all directions, all around your physical body. It basically spans not only the air, within the air of the space for which you physically exist, but through the room, through the building, through the region, through the state, country, basically through all aspects of what exists on Earth and beyond the Earth, into the solar system, into the other planets, galaxy, universe, multiverse. It just goes on and on. So as you basically, you're just suspended in a portion of the grid. So in a way, you could also view this as like you are on a spider web. The grid in itself, we'll use the analogy of like a spider web. And as you know, with spider webs, spiders relate to the web, and they feel different portions of the web via vibration. So, something touches the web on one end, they can feel it. So in the same way, as we remember more of our natural multidimensional essence, we are grounding and changing the vibration of the physical vibration, our frequency. That frequency in itself vibrates out into the grid on Earth. Wherever we go, wherever we walk, it's basically changing the pattern, changing the frequency. It's affecting the vibration. In the same way as everyone on Earth basically is emitting some kind of vibration, and there is no good or bad, it basically just is. Remember, it doesn't matter who someone is and or what vibration they emit or in what form they are or who they are. Basically, we're all spawned out of the same infinity grid. So there is no judgment regarding this of who emits what vibration. But the whole point of this is to see that we're all connected to the same grid. We're all on the same grid. if you truly wish to change and or assist the grid in evolving into a lighter form, of course, the only way to do that is to change your own vibration, to change your own frequency, to assist you and evolve your own essence back into its natural form. And in the same way, when you are doing this, you are assisting the grid that's tied into duality of this earth and evolving back into its natural form. And there's a lot of different levels within this universe that are going through the same process of releasing density, integrating back into our natural form, back into and connecting with the essence and vibration of the infinity grid. Basically our cosmic essence. So the biggest point, is that, well, even beyond the infinity grid, there's it's different levels of experience. So it's a matter of us releasing the separation, releasing the levels of our to basically dissolve back into levels of the grid. It's sort of, in a way, a lot of people already remember this. Remember that they are not necessarily a part of this level of duality. There's like, this is not who I am. This is not this doesn't feel like home, and so on. And, it's a matter of us not being in denial of who we truly are, but at the same time accepting where we are and the reason why we're here. To not want to escape. There's nothing to escape from. Remember, the grid is infinite. This space is infinite right here, right now. So release the separation of trying to escape. There's nothing to escape from. We are it. The infinite grid is us, and we are it. So going into the space of seeing yourself suspended on the grid, you see yourself radiating, all kinds of different rays of the sun, the pearlescent colors of the rainbow, out into all directions. See how it flows through the web and the different levels of the multidimensional grids. And you see the colors of the rainbow, the spectrum, basically just flowing and flowing and flowing out into all directions. Not only levels of your own self, the multidimensional essence that's tied to your physical body, but the whole grid on Earth, the multidimensional grid of the Earth, the solar system, the galaxy, the universe, into the multiverses, levels of existence. Merging into the fabric of the infinity grid. So there's a lot of different things you can do going forward in meditation and or in just with your curiosity, is to play around with this. That if there's a level of your own awareness that basically says we have to go somewhere, or someone has to come down here or save us, or some being or has to come save us, or and or this or but this or whatever, is to really just grasp the concept of we are already infinite. We're just existing in a level of restricted energy. It doesn't mean that we say our restricted energy on an infinite level, but we're just experiencing limitation for a short period of time. So, connecting into the infinity grid. Hope this information might assist you in your own remembrance. And flowing through the infinite grid with you right now. So, that's it for this one. I'll catch you next time.